Welcome to another episode of Legal Angle with Emmanuel Olawale. My name is Emmanuel Olawale. I'm an attorney, a podcaster, and author based in Columbus, Ohio. I have with me today an attorney for over 20 years. She's been a judicial candidate. She's a TEDx speaker and a podcaster. Her name is Kristen Family. Yes. I don't want to tell the audience I know there are a lot of things about you. Can you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Hi, audience. Thanks so much for tuning in to hear me. Thank you so much, Emmanuel, for letting me be on the show today. I am, in fact, Christian Family Esquire. I'm a twice divorced adult child of divorce, former or recovering divorce lawyer for nearly 20 years. We'll talk about that. I am currently just 100% fulfilling my mission to remove the stigma from divorce. And we'll talk more about that. And then the podcast, what's fun about the podcast is the impetus for that is that both of my parents live with me and they've been divorced for 35 years.
Oh,
right?
Interesting.
Exactly. It's like real live Blackish. And so they were the impetus for the podcast, Asshole Parents.
Oh, okay. Okay. And your name, Christian Family, is a unique name. Do you mind telling the audience the origin of that?
The Christian Family name change story is hands down one of my favorite stories of all time. Okay. I hope you have a few minutes because it's kind of long.
Sure. We want to hear it.
Okay. So it starts back, and I would dare say May of 2018. Mm-hmm. I went to a conference, so to speak, about how to start a second law firm. Because at the time I was Manning Law Company. I had a divorce law firm, family law firm that I'd had for quite a few years. And my mission was really Christian divorce. That really is my angle, helping Christians get out of the marriages that God didn't put them in. That's where I was at the time. And I was considering opening a second law firm, or at least like a title agency, just working with my then husband because we were trying to find a business thing we could do together. On the way to the workshop, right, just a few weeks before, even though I had, signed up for a few months before, a few weeks before, I had to let my associate go.
Okay.
While I was there, the paralegal quit.
Oh.
And so that was just then me and this legal assistant who'd really only been with me for days. At that point, the gentleman, Arjan, who was running the workshop, says, clearly, you're not in a position to open a second law firm because your first one's not working. Maybe you should burn it to the ground and rebuild it as something else. And that'll be your second law firm, will be your first law firm working better.
Okay.
Right. And so then he says, and what's with this Manning Law Company? Aren't you like Christian divorce law or Christian family law? Where's your message? And I said, no, I'm in Ohio. And Ohio doesn't allow trade names for a law firm. So the only way I could be Christian divorce law, the only way I could be Christian family law is if my name was actually Christian Family. So that was the beginning of the idea, right? And it was a little tongue in cheek, a little bit of a, like a joke, haha. But I thought, why not, right? This is a major branding move to make, very out there. I was like, I'm willing to do it. So then the story changes. So I fill out the application. My name change hearing is actually on August the 2nd of 2018. That's the day my name is going to change. Incidentally, I was signed up for an emotional intelligence leadership training that was going to be the weekend of August the 3rd through the 5th. The 5th was my birthday, August the 5th. So it was like really all time together. Okay. And so it was cool to go and meet a community of people who would only know me by my new name. What I didn't know is that when I signed up for that workshop for the emotional intelligence leadership training,
yes,
it was because I felt like my business wasn't growing the way that I thought it should. And I figured that there must have been some kind of blind spot I had. And so I was really going to find out what my blind spot was. On August the 1st, the day before my name change hearing, my husband blacked my eye.
Oh.
And so I went into the name change hearing with a black eye. I went into the leadership training, trying to figure out why my business wasn't flourishing with a black eye. And throughout the training, there was a sign on the wall that says, what are you pretending not to know?
What are you pretending not to know?
And what I was pretending not to know is that I was a Christian woman who was in an abusive marriage.
Wow.
And the reason my business wasn't growing and flourishing is because my message is that Christian women don't have to stay in these kind of marriages. And here I was, a Christian woman in one of these marriages, feeling trapped.
Hmm. Hmm. You're supposedly in a Christian family, but you're trapped in that perception.
Exactly.
Wow.
So the name it changed
Hmm.
took on its own life.
It took
It
on its
ended
own
up
life.
being me stepping into, right, like a whole new person, like how in the Bible, when and people get
Hmm.
their new name and they become a new person and they really fulfill their mission.
Yeah.
And
Abraham to Abraham.
you know it. And that's where I'm
Mhm.
at right now, because it took the law firm for me to change the name.
Hmm.
But once I have fully accepted and stepped into my mission of removing the stigma from divorce, I closed the law firm.
And you started afresh.
And I'm starting fresh. I closed that law firm completely. I mean, in full disclosure, because when we signed up, I was still practicing. Like, I've actually filed inactive, like I'm no longer practicing.
Okay.
I liken it to in the Old Testament when Elijah goes to call Elisha
Mm-hmm.
to be like his successor, right?
Yes.
He sees Elisha out there, he's plowing the field,
Mm-hmm.
and he calls him. And when Elisha accepts the call, he says, wait, let me go back. And he goes back and he, right, destroys the plow, sets it on fire, and kills the oxen and eats them. And that's what I feel like I'm doing with the law firm. I can't fully accept my mission and be fully immersed in my mission of removing the stigma from divorce as long as I was still tethered to being a practicing attorney, kind of helping clients one at a time. So it was a major risk jump, but that's where I'm
Wow.
at right now. And so thanks.
Wow. You changed the name, you changed the brand, you became a new you. Wow.
Yes.
What a story. Wow. And today we'll be talking about erasing the stigma of divorce.
Yes.
Divorce can be very traumatizing, as you know it. You've been through it twice. And a lot of people don't go into marriages with the intention to get divorced later.
Mm-hmm.
But life happens. And
Exactly.
sometimes that has to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And according to the American Psychological Association, at least about 40 to 50% of forced marriages ends in divorce.
Mm-hmm.
The statistics is even higher for previous marriages.
Mm-hmm.
So, someone on the second or third marriage is highly likely that they will get a divorce, more than even the first marriages.
Right.
What do you think? That's a grim picture. What do you
Well,
think is responsible for it?
well, I actually see it, those numbers a little differently.
Okay.
I see those numbers as 1 in 2 marriages stands the test of time. 1
Instead
in
of
2 marriages stands the test of time.
so,
And it shows that marriage really is an institution that works.
hmm,
In my 20 years of practice, I've never met a healthy, growing marriage that ended in divorce.
hmm, hmm,
And so, while a lot of the marriages do end in divorce, I find that divorce itself is a result. The cause is hardened hearts.
hmm,
It's hardened hearts. And hearts become hard for a number of different reasons. Sometimes the heart becomes hard because it's looking outside of the marriage
hmm,
for something it should be looking inside the marriage for.
hmm.
And so, and all of that being, because there's this oneness, but when your heart is hard, it breaks that oneness. Sometimes the hardness of heart happens because one person did something wrong. They are repentant, but the other spouse is unforgiving. Unforgiveness can cause a hardness of hearts. Sometimes
The hardness of heart.
Right? Sometimes a heart becomes hard because it's been protecting itself from abuse. And it has to be hard almost to protect itself. So yeah, it's hard, but you're exactly right. People are not getting married wanting to get a divorce. I've never seen it.
Yes, I don't see either. People don't gather people together or go down to the courthouse and say, "Oh, we're tying the knot," only to say, "You know what? We'll be getting divorced in a few years." It doesn't happen. But like I said, life happens. From your own personal experience, I don't know if you want to. Would you like to share the story of how your first marriage ended in divorce, or what led to it, or what do you think you could have done differently, or what your partner could have done differently?
Gotcha. Oh, listen, this story gets juicy. I hope you're ready for it.
I'm ready for it.
The lead up to the story would be that I had been, let's see, I met my first husband when I was 19 years old, actually.
Hmm.
We didn't officially get married until I was 27. So there was a lot of time that we were dating, and the whole time was really long distance, but he was my boyfriend through law school, through passing the bar, through, my first couple of years, even practicing somewhere. He was, we were still together.
Yes.
And throughout my law career, I've always kind of handled divorces.
Okay.
And the only thing I knew about them really is that I never wanted one. Right? That's what I knew for sure, is I never wanted a divorce. My parents were divorced, and I was not going to do like they were going to do. And even in my first gig out of law school, right, there's always some backstory, right? I worked at legal aid, and I was helping victims of abuse, right, get protection orders and divorces. And even then, with my Christian background and just being a person who didn't know, I was still a little judgmental. And I felt like, well, these people are getting a divorce because, these people need a divorce because, they chose poorly. They chose to get the guy who's abusive. And so, of course, they need a divorce. They chose poorly. And so it was still kind of a judgment on them and on their character, And in marriages where that wasn't necessarily the thing and the people got divorced, in my mind, I was always a little judgmental about, well, maybe they should have tried harder. What did they not do? And it was just an underlying thing because I'd never experienced it.
Yes.
Well, when shortly before my third anniversary, my husband said to me, I don't know if I want to be married to you anymore. I don't love you the way a husband should love a wife.
He was bold to tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How did you take that?
So so convinced that I would never be divorced and so convinced that I was going to be the perfect wife and do everything perfectly, my response to him was, well, thanks for sharing, right? I'm glad you love me enough to let me know that's how you're feeling right now. What are we going to do to work on this?
Okay, you wanted to work it out.
I wanted to work it out. We lived in this kind of weird, kind of awkward space for quite a few weeks until finally it was unbearable. And I said something to him about, well, why don't you just move out? And within, I don't know, an hour or so of me calling him back to say, oh my God, I didn't mean that, right? Because I had spoken to a Christian girlfriend of mine and I said, oh my God, he said this to me. I've told him to move out, to get out. And she says, no, right? Christian women do not put their husbands out of the house. Now, if he leaves, that's one thing, but you don't put him out. So I'm calling him back, oh, don't leave, and he's like, no, well, as soon as you said that to me, I got a call from my job because he worked long distance. So his company was actually in Illinois. And for the next 6 months, I'm just going to go to Illinois and, work from there. So this will be our separation. And again, not wanting a divorce so bad. And also knowing that separation isn't divorce. And that's a fact. That's an important message that I teach people. Separation is not divorce. Sometimes separation is the thing that can save and heal a marriage. And so me wanting so desperately to have that, when he said, oh, this will be a separation, I said, okay. He was gone for 6 months. There was no communication, really.
No communication, no texts, no calls, no letters.
Wow. I finally had to take my ring off and accept the fact that, wait, we're not getting together. And even though I was the one who ultimately filed the divorce papers, I didn't want a divorce. I just wanted him to realize what he was losing and that he would come running back to me. It wasn't until he'd been gone for well over a year before I learned that he left me for his boyfriend.
Oh, wow. He was gay.
Yep.
And you had no inkling.
I like to say I had no inkling. Okay. I chose not to know.
You were in denial.
Not to know was probably the more honest answer.
Okay.
So he traveled for work. And so I'm young. I'm in my 20s yet, no kids, it's just he and I. He traveled for work. When he'd come home from work, and the way I hear about it, I'm going to be the perfect wife and I'd have dinner all ready, and I'd be dressed sexy, suggesting for dessert. And he'd want to really have ice cream and watch Project Runway.
Oh, instead of being with you. So all the attempt you're making to get him to be close to you wasn't working.
Was not working.
Wow. And you had no inkling that he had attraction for men.
for men, right? I refused to accept any of the signs that I had seen.
Okay,
And
you
it's a
saw some
hard
signs.
thing to admit.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole experience is so humbling, like so humbling, right? Because it makes me, number one, recognize that you cannot know something you don't want to know. You cannot know something you don't want to know. You hear about it sometimes with women whose daughters are being molested. You know, people keep saying,
no, it's not happening.
So judgy to them. And what I know is this: you cannot know anything you don't want to know. If you don't want to know it, you cannot know it. You know, it's psychological what you're doing to yourself, but it's a fact, you know? And so there I was in that because I so desperately didn't want to be divorced. I so desperately just wanted to be the perfect wife and have, you know, and I was sure that everything would work out perfectly because that's what I wanted. And so that's part of the message with divorce is it doesn't necessarily matter how much you don't want to be divorced.
Yeah.
It takes two people.
It does. Sometimes we don't want to discover the truth that will destroy our lives or shatter all that we're used to. Wow. Do you mind, then how long did it take you to get over that? And then you decided again that, you know what, I want to try marriage again. And then you went into your second marriage.
Oh, also a good story, because you noted at the very beginning that the second marriages, right, tend to fail at even a higher rate.
At a higher rate
than the first marriage is, and that's, I think, due to the fact of not fully healing from the first marriage before moving on to the second
marriage. How long was that?
Let's see. My first marriage was officially over on June 25th, 2009, which is the same day Michael Jackson died.
Oh, wow.
Right? So I'm coming out of court calling people like, I'm divorced. They're like, Michael Jackson. Oh, right. Wow. I'll never forget that day. But I had been separated from my husband at that point since 2007, right? So we've been physically divorced for nearly 2 years.
2 years.
Then the divorce was final. I made the run for judge.
In 2010?
Which would have been 2010, right? So that election's over in 2010. In March of 11 is when I met the new husband. And that relationship moved really fast. And what it had is a lot of the things that my first marriage didn't have, like passion. My first husband was independent to a point where he had an entire separate life that had nothing to do with me. Like I was a single wife.
Yeah.
My second husband loved to spend time with me. Anything that I found interesting and fun, he found interesting and fun. He wanted to go to the symphony with me, to like community plays. Like I love plays. I'll go to a high school production with a kid in it that's not even mine. You know what I mean? Like that's just something I'm into. And he did that stuff with me. So he always wanted to be together. He was very passionate. Now later, I've learned that this passion was really more than that. It was really more of obsession. Right.
Okay.
But coming from where I was, right. And so thirsty, so to speak, I guess for the attention I kind of love, you know what I mean?
Yeah. The attention you need for so long.
Right. You know, for 10 years, I was with my first husband. 10 years. We weren't married long. We were together for a decade. So of being a young woman who's being rejected, you know, so here's, you know, a guy who is really into me and he had all of the qualities that I love in a man. He's a very manly man. He can fix things, you know, he's strong, like just right. And another beautiful thing, he can cook, right?
Awesome.
Raising a boy that was not biologically his, which I thought was awesome. Like when he and his prior relationship broke up, because he had been raising the boy from when he was 3. When he and the woman broke up, he kind of kept the son for all intents and purposes. And he became the guardian and was raising that boy. And at the time I had my foster care license and just our hearts, you know what I mean? To have that kind of heart and love for a child that's not biologically yours was just like, yeah. And so even though, again, and here's a marriage that had a relationship that had some signs that I wasn't, you know, that I was ignoring. I still went into it like
red flags,
right? But yeah. And so your story, I think, I don't know, I don't want to talk too much, but what I learned, right, from having to process both of these marriages and both of these divorces, and to really come into perspective into how did this happen? Like what was commonality? What was the similarity between these two men? How did I do this, right? End up in two marriages that weren't working for me. And what I've learned about myself is that I had a very heavy superwoman complex that led me to believe that I could save him.
So you went into marriages trying to save him.
Yes. And that's the commonality. These are people who needed me for something. The first husband needed me for a beard for all intents and purposes. Again, looking back in hindsight, I know that he was able to actually kind of officially come out and be honest about his sexuality and stop being married to me when his grandmother passed away.
Wow.
He wasn't able to say those words or do that as long as she was alive. So he needed me. Do you know what I mean? Me as a cover. And so on some level, I was saving him, whether I knew it or not, but that's the thing that was happening. And just the willingness to, not see what was obviously in front of me. And then with the second marriage, I was convinced that I was going to, save him. And I had sold this story to people that you can be happily married after a divorce, that you can start having kids later in life. I didn't start having kids till I was 36. That a professional woman can marry a gentleman like my husband. He had a criminal record. When we met, he had a GED, like this is, so I'm telling this story, to people, and I wanted it to be true, and he was a drinker, but then he was baptized, and I've heard Christian women, mothers of the church for decades, tell stories about how the first 5, 10, 15 years of marriage, he wasn't no good, he snuck around, all this kind of stuff, but then, God got him, and now look at us in these last few years of marriage, blah, 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 I wanted that testimony.
You're looking for that Hollywood ending. But it didn't happen.
But it didn't.
Wow. So, And being a Christian woman, how were you able to reconcile your job as a divorce attorney and your life experience?
That's pretty good. I managed to merge them in a way that I thought was really beautiful. And that happened because in running the law firm, a question was asked of me once. The thing is backwards. Okay, there you go. A question was asked of me: who do you want to help, and what do you want to help them do? And it was a question around, well, why do you get into the practice area that you get into? Like some people do tax work because they just love tax. I've got tax girlfriends. They just love it, the code and the tax, and they just love that. Okay, cool. And there are people who help veterans because they're passionate about that population, they're passionate about veterans,
Yes.
Why do I do divorce law, right? I mean, nobody really likes people that are getting divorced. Let's be clear. Okay. You're on your worst behavior. Like this is not your stellar self when you're going through divorce, right? So you don't really like people. Okay. Yes. And the area of law itself is not super exciting. So why divorce law? Why divorce people? And it's because I have a message, which is that divorce is forgivable. Divorce is forgivable. And good Christians do not have to stay in bad marriages for the wrong reasons. The God that I know is a loving God. And he believes in marriage. And marriage is like, the church is the bride of Christ. Like there is an image of what marriage should be. There are healthy, growing marriages. And I want to protect those. And the only way to protect those is to get rid of the stuff that's not really that. And that's the message. And so many of my clients came to me not wanting a divorce. Sometimes a situation like my first one, the husband had filed. A lot of times a second situation like my second, where they just were finally like, I don't think this is ever going to get any better. But they still have the voice in their head, which people have told them that God hates divorce. And so they feel like, oh my God, how can I still be a good Christian and get this divorce? Am I failing God? Am I now going to be disqualified from ministry? Like all of these things. And my explanation is this: God is not a jerk. My God's not a jerk.
Hmm.
If you got into a marriage legitimately wanting it to stand the test of time, and when you get into the middle of it, for whatever reason, if it's because resentment grew up, if it's because the other person isn't who they presented themselves to be, whatever happened, and it's no longer growing you or making you grow closer to God or making you, you know what I mean, evolve into your next level of self, then this isn't the kind of marriage that God wants for you. And only a jerk would say, well, now you got to stay in that marriage. You got in it. You got to stay, right? That's only a jerk would do that. And God's not a jerk. Yeah. And the second side of that conversation is that I think a lot of people have the conversation upside down. You can't get out of that marriage. Maybe you should have never gotten into that marriage. And on that front, I believe that you can't force God's hand. Like, yes, you came together, right? You made your vows in front of God.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if this was not a union that God meant to be together, are you going to force him to bless it? Because now you're gotten married. So now God, now what? You gonna bless this? We married. You can't manipulate.
You can't manipulate God into blessing what is not his will.
Exactly.
That's interesting.
Right. Okay. And that being said, we don't always know. You know what I mean? We don't know. Maybe it was a marriage. Like with my very first marriage, I know for a fact that I did not ask God directly if I should or could marry him. Mm-hmm. I had made up in my mind that's what I was going to do because I had been dating him this long and I had made out this plan for how my life was going to be, and he was fitting into it in that way. So going back through my prayer journals, I found that even the night of the wedding, I had written in my journal, I'm settling.
Wow.
Turn back now.
Wow. You knew that. Wow. If it was the perfect fit for your fantasy, you knew settling. Yep. Wow. Well, it took you, how long did it take you to realize that?
Long time.
13 years.
Wow, right. Long time.
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah, right. Wow. So that was a rough one. And then now, so with the second husband, I was very clear to ask God, can I marry him? And I heard God say yes. And I believe he said yes. I've had 3 beautiful children that I confidently would not have had if I had not been married to him. I'm living in the house that I love, that I confidently would not have purchased if I had not been married to him. There are a lot of things. I would not have this message
without that relationship. Wow.
If I had not been married to him.
Let me ask you this. As a Christian, and with the Christian faith, a lot of people will tell you it's for better, for worse. The faith is against divorces, and whatever happens, you should stick to it. How would you describe the kind of support or lack of support you got from your Christian family after your divorces?
Thank you. I have been amazingly and wonderfully blessed.
Okay.
Particularly to be the daughter of my mother, who is also twice divorced and an ordained minister. And I was there but she didn't accept her call, I want to say, to the ministry until after the divorces. And part of her story, and I'm not here to tell her testimony though, was that besides the fact that we were originally taught that women don't preach, which was drama in itself, right? Like that was part of our original programming. That, and then being taught this about divorce, there was some internal shame dialogue that said, well, can this really be the call? Can I be being called and I have this past? And to have been there and saw, the work that God did in her and grew her and changed her, that helped me to know that I'm not disqualified because of things that happened, that God isn't going to punish me forever and I can't not love again because I was in these places. And so having the strength of my mother was very helpful there. The first separation, especially when I was telling you he was gone for those 6 months and I was still kind of hoping and praying. My church at the time actually did hook me up with a woman who her and her husband had been separated for 5 years.
Wow.
before reconciling their marriage. And now they were like 10 years past the separation and things were beautiful. And the church helped bring us along together and brought her alongside me to pray with me and be with me through that process, to help me understand that separation didn't necessarily mean divorce, you know? So while I was in that period, it was nice to have that kind of support, because I've heard of some women who even trying to separate from the husband, not even getting a divorce, just trying to separate. They're being pressed on and stepped down and told that's bad, 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 you know? And so I didn't have that. And oh my God, thank God for it. Thank God.
So you never had any kind of negative effect from your church or from the pastors, or wow.
Nope. Yeah, I refuse. I've been one of the most blessed Christians I know in my life. You hear about a lot of people who have been church hurt, that were taught contradicting, hypocritical type things as children. I have a good girlfriend who talks about that. They would leave church, and at church they'd be talking about, you don't wear lipstick, you don't wear pants, you don't watch movies, you don't play the lottery, like all these things you don't do. And then her family would leave church and they would all go get a movie. Do you know what I mean? And like, and then play the church talking about, you don't do this, and it caused a lot of right. And the first husband, who would talk about, he grew up, he went to Catholic schools, but he went to, I want to say, Pentecostal churches. And he was really shut down for even asking questions, just asking questions. He was shut down, you shut up, just, it is what it is. You're out, right. This kind of thing. And these kind of things are the things that hurt people and stop people from really being able to have a relationship with God for themselves. And so I would say the reason I didn't have any pushback from my church, and maybe I did, is because I have a personal relationship with God. Yeah. I read the Bible for myself, and I was taught that from the age of 10 years old, that this is my relationship, is with him. And if he says it's okay, it's okay. On that note, I would note this: with the first marriage, when I finally accepted the fact that he wasn't coming back, I said to God, well, I want to get a divorce. And God said, not now. It was a very clear, not now.
Yeah, now.
Not a no.
Until the right time. Wow.
Yeah. And the time did come. And I've had several girlfriends who had a very similar kind of experience with God, where it wasn't a clear no, but it was not now. Like, you're not making this decision, and you're not doing it at this time. You're not doing it in these emotions.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because in some situations, the stigma itself comes from the people around you. Even though you just lost a relationship, you just lost some parts of your life, and you just got divorced. You're not just divorcing that person, then the community will also divorce you. Yes. You have this stigma on you. So how do you overcome that? What can you tell people who are going through that now? Maybe they've been rejected by their church, by their friends, you know what I'm talking about. We
call that collateral damage.
Collateral damage.
Yes. Collateral damage, because you're exactly right. The divorce isn't just about the man and the woman who were divorced, or just their children. It's their families, their extended families, their friends, right? And their church families.
Yes.
And their church families. And the advice that I have to give is to find a support group. Divorce Care International is at churches throughout Columbus, the state of Ohio, throughout the country, throughout the world. It's like a Christian 12-step program for divorce. And in there is a built-in community of like-minded faith people who are also experiencing the same thing. And it was finding that community where I actually had a place to try to process these emotions. I love him, I hate him, I pity him, I want to fight him, all at the same time. Like, is this okay? Right? Is this possible? And to be with other people like that. And so the number one advice is to find a support group. And on that note, plug, I am presently creating a private Facebook group called Thinking About Divorce.
Hmm.
And it would be a safe space for people, especially I'm thinking women who are currently married, you're living together and maybe separated, but definitely there's not a divorce happening and you're just thinking about the divorce. And you need a safe space to talk because maybe the people you can't talk to your family about it. Maybe you can't talk to the people at church about it. Here's a place you can. It's Thinking About Divorce. You can find it. It's a private, closed group, so you can find it. You'll need to answer some questions to be let in, but there is a community there for you. So find support. That's what you can do. You can't change the way the other people are going to respond. They're hurt too. They're hurt too. A lot of my friends were invested in my marriage. It hurt them to have to look at their own marriage. If my marriage is falling apart, well, what does that say about my own marriage? It makes it hit too close to home. And so the key is you have to search out and seek out a community that's going to support you because you can't necessarily expect to have it from the community that's around you.
Wow, that's deep. You should seek a community that can support you. Wow. So, what would be your advice for a couple going through a divorce or already divorced with children, but then they are trying to get used to parenting from, from afar, separately or in different households?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So this is my number one advice to anybody and everybody who is thinking about divorce, preparing for divorce. Live separate and apart for at least 6 months, if possible, in a year if you can. Because while you're living separate and apart, it gives you an opportunity to see what is it like to try to raise kids from two different households. What is that like? And you get a chance to experience it, see what you like and what you don't like before you're in court paying lawyers and trying to figure out what it is you want. The main things with co-parenting are to know that each parent has their own responsibility to define the relationship with the child. Okay? Each parent has their own responsibility to define the relationship with the child. And the second part of that is if one parent has to be a jerk, let it be the other parent, not you.
Not you.
Okay? And here's how that looks. In my life, right? In my life, we've got, when I was a child, that's my favorite story. Let's start with this one. When I was a child, and I would go visit with my dad for the weekends, he was very much a bachelor. And my mom and my grandmother would say, whoever would come pick me up, when they would get me, I would be sticky and stinky. If they asked me what I ate, I'd say cheese and hot peppers. But I would be happy. I would be so happy. And what they always focused on is just how happy I was to spend time with my dad. That was the decision. The decision is to just let me be happy. Now, on some level, maybe the concern could have been, hey, listen, if you're not going to be able to feed her properly and make sure she has proper nutrition, if you're not going to be able to bathe her properly and make sure she has proper hygiene, then maybe she shouldn't be coming over here and spending this much time with you. And on some level, I guess they had the right to have that attitude. But I promise you, here's how it would have turned out. Mommy, you're a jerk for not letting me see dad. Right? Because that's what it would have turned into. If she was keeping me away from my dad, but instead what she chose to do was to see that I was happy. To let my happiness be the thing that led the day.
So
another thing.
Go ahead.
Yeah, a thing that's coming up with me currently is that the kid's dad is in a serious relationship. He lives with another woman and has been living with her for maybe about a year. I learned about her from the children. I didn't know he was living with this woman.
Yeah.
But the kids would talk about her. And all the things they said about her were good.
Okay.
And therefore, I'm okay with her.
That was going to be my next question, because that's always a concern when you have divorced couple and one is dating and they've got children, and one parent doesn't want their kids to spend time with the other party's significant other, which is not possible because one way or the other, you have to accept the fact that your kids are being raised in a separate household, and whatever goes on there, you can't control it.
You can't
So
control it.
how do you balance that with some of your clients? Having to explain to them that, you know what, this is your bed, you've got to lie on it.
It really is
that message.
That is the message is this: you can't control what's going on over there. Yes. And if say the story is he is bringing different women. Say my facts were different, and he was bringing different women around the kids all the time. That's still his drama, right? Yeah. It's the kids that will understand that. Wow, we want to go spend time with daddy, and he's always got some different women over here. Okay. That's still his responsibility to define that relationship with the kids. And God forbid he'd have some woman around them that would be mean to them. But if he did, that's still him. It's not me. He has a responsibility to define his relationship with the children. And if it doesn't bother him, on some levels it can't bother me. And it is hard. It's a very hard thing. I had a couple of clients where they wanted the dad to be involved and he wouldn't be. This is the other side, right? So you got some dads that are like, I need equal time. You got some dads that are like, right? They've got a dad that they want to be involved, but it's still the same story. You can't make him.
You can't force people to be who they're not.
Can't do it. And it hurts them to see the kids hurt. And then what happens is as parents, we want to protect our children from the hurt. Is what's happening. But we can't. The kids are going to learn who their parents are. And they're going to learn it from that parent. You don't have to say anything. Kids will figure it out. But my advice in those situations is to have the kid call. If the kid asks about the dad, whether he's been around or not, let the kid call. Let the kid call and let him leave a message. If a kid calls and leaves enough messages, either the parent is going to have a softening of heart and call and realize, wow, I'm missing an opportunity to have a relationship with this kid, or they won't. And the kid will know.
Definitely.
I called over and over and they never bothered to call me back.
Definitely. Yes. And in some divorce cases, especially contested divorces with children and some properties, and you have clients that want you to internalize their anger, their frustration, their hatred, all the negative energy, and they want you to be that bulldog to do their daily deeds. How do you handle that? And in some instances, they can even tell you, oh, you're not being tough enough, you're not demanding enough. They just want you to be that people. How do you handle situations like that?
So, this is juicy. Right? The first thing really is to kind of set the expectations at the beginning, right? It was very kind of choosy about the clients that I took. If in the conversation, just in the initial consultation, I could tell that what this divorce is about is you getting back at the other person, then you're not the client for me.
Awesome.
And so that helped very at the beginning. You can tell from their conversation that they just, this is about them. But also a lot of my clients needed a pit bull because this person is just too freaking nice. Oh my God, they just would lay down, you know what I mean? And not take anything and give it all the way and not even stand up for themselves. And so for those people, you got to stand up for, listen, hey, you're entitled to this and we're going to fight for it, and to make a, right. And to just kind of like lay the line down. Like you don't have to give up everything, but we're not going to, some stuff we're not going to die over, you know what I mean? Let it go. Let that go. Let them have that. But some stuff is worth fighting for. I had, let me see if I can think of a good one. People who were, because no, most of them are pretty good. I give practical advice. Oh, here. Okay. Here's one. Hold on. I'm doing an interview. Okay. Thanks. Oh, it was my mom that time. I thought it was one of the kids. You never know. Okay. Where was that? Okay. So divorce and making sure that they're right. aiming for the right things or wanting the right things and
the
not
right thing.
be fighting over kind of nonsense.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And in some situations too, you have clients who, even after the divorce, then the second battle starts, which is to start weaponizing the children. I've seen situations like that before, and it's never pretty. How do
No,
you counsel people like that?
So it really is hard. It's hard to counsel people like that once they've gotten that far into it, which is part of why my point to pivot right now is to catch people right at the very beginning, as soon as they're thinking about divorce, so that we can look at all the elements and start processing early. Because the reason things get nasty is really, it's the emotions, right, that are involved. And so how can I, like you talk about, right, how can I get back at this person? How can I hurt them? If you have handled those emotions before getting into the legal process, you're not going to end up there. That's not where you will end up.
So go ahead.
No, go ahead. What are you going to say?
So do you suggest that people go through the divorce while also in therapy, or go to therapy after divorce? Or they can do both together?
Right. You can't do both. My preference would be really to do the healing before you ever file for divorce. As much as possible. As much as possible. Everyone grieves the death of their marriage. Everyone grieves the death of their marriage. The question is, when are you going to do it? Some people grieve the death of the marriage during the marriage itself. And that's what finally got them to the point where they knew they needed to file divorce. A lot of times when I catch people who are at this stage, and those are my favorite, they had been going to counseling. They had been going to counseling well before they finally made the decision that, you know what, nothing else here can be done. And so now they're making an empowered decision to move towards divorce. Some people, like me, right, and other people who find themselves on the other end of the divorce, so they didn't have an opportunity to grieve the marriage during the marriage because they still thought the marriage was fine until the spouse says they might want out. I suggest getting into counseling immediately then. So now you're in counseling while the divorce is proceeding. And if that's the soonest, you know what I mean? It's because that's when you're grieving it. Definitely get in to the counseling then. Then I had a third girlfriend. She's one of my favorites. She'll always be a story, a cautionary tale that I'll tell. When she realized that her and the husband, it just wasn't going to work out. She'd been kind of the primary breadwinner anyway. I want to say the house is in her name. She'd been the primary caretaker of the kids. And he did kind of have the decency to walk away and not try to get much of anything, right? Which I respect. And so they kind of agreed to that. And she was in just such a hurry to get this divorce. He couldn't have been out of the house 60 days, maybe even 30 days before she's like, yeah, and the divorce. And I'm like, hey, it's too soon. So it's too soon. You haven't had any time to grieve it. You haven't grieved this yet. She didn't take my advice. She kind of hurried up. She got the divorce. And then after the divorce, she fell into a really dark depression. She didn't recognize this what it was. She was just like, oh my God, I'm so tired and I can't get out of the bed and my body hurts and all of this, And I said, no, you're depressed. You're depressed because now you're grieving the death of your marriage. Nobody misses it. You just don't know when it's going to happen. And so the time for her to go would have been after, right? The divorce was final, because that's when she was finally grieving. Do you need therapy? Yes. Do you need a support group?
Yes, you do.
Yes.
Wow. So, how do you handle dealing with ex-in-laws after a divorce?
Ooh, in-laws. Juicy. That is hard. That is a hard one, because I've seen them. Let me think.
From your experience, how did you handle it?
Ooh, so with the first in-laws, because he and I didn't have any children together, there was really no reason. We didn't have to maintain a relationship.
Okay.
We didn't have to. To this day, still all the best recipes I have, like I'm not really a cook, but all my best recipes I got from my first mother-in-law. I'll always appreciate her for that. I'll always appreciate her for that. A lot of the way that first marriage went, he was kind of, because he was living the secret life, he was always trying to pit me and her kind of against each other. Like he was keeping us apart. So our relationship was never as close as it could have been. Because I do know people who've kept up that relationship, you know, like with their in-laws. I got a girlfriend, her and this guy been divorced. They've probably been divorced for a decade. She's still close with his people, and they didn't have any kids together, right? But they just had a good relationship. I think secretly his parents are still hoping that she'll take him back.
Yeah, they'll marry and get back together.
Yeah, but I don't think it's gonna happen, right? With my second set of in-laws, though, who are my kids' family, right? So they're my family. They're my family, and so I'll keep that relationship. And my own personal family, which I think, so again, you heard the story. My parents both live here, right? They've been divorced for 35 years. They both live here.
And they are still divorced? Mm-hmm. And they live together with you?
They both live with me. Mm-hmm. Okay. Exactly. Okay, right? So they're right? It's fun. My mother explains, she says that it's really like living with her brother for all intents and purposes. They've got a shared history together. And she knows there's never going to be anything romantic.
Okay.
Right?
So do you have that understanding?
You're right.
They get along.
Right. Okay. So it's like being with her brother. It's a cute thing. But the morals of the story, the Sledges and the Campbells, those are my birth families. The families themselves like really join together. And so even though my parents, like I said, have been divorced for 35 years, when my cousins on my father's side of the family have graduations and stuff, my people on my mother's side of the family, you know what I mean, show up at the events, they buy gifts, you know, like it's that kind of thing. When we had Christmas at my house, both sides of the family were there. It just is an amazing testament, I think, to how families can be and how I hope one day they all will be. When we take some of that stigma away from the divorce, right? It doesn't mean you're a bad person or that you did something wrong. It means this, you know, this relationship ended, you know, maybe it ended after 2 years, maybe it ended after 30 years. I mean, but it lasted as long as it lasted, and now it ended. It doesn't have to be nasty, ugly, or mean. All of the things that were created together with a divorce, right? Like these family relationships, friendship relationships, don't have to be destroyed. They don't have to.
So you're just not preaching, you're raising stigma of divorces. You're actually leaving it. Yes. Even your parents are leaving it in your household. Correct. That's powerful. Wow. So how do you counsel, what can you tell a couple who wants to talk to their children about the fact that they're going through a divorce, or after the divorce has been finalized and they want to ease their children into the new life and the new normal?
What happened is, thank you very much. Part of why I suggest that you separate early and before, like as long as possible before any divorce gets underway, is to give the kids just a chance to feel it. You know, just you have to be honest with children. Number one, if your marriage is at a place where it needs a divorce, the kids know. They know, you know what I mean? They know it's tense in the house. They know it's uneasy. It doesn't mean they want a divorce, but they will understand. They will survive. So that's the main thing. Just let them know. There doesn't need to be some secret. It doesn't need to be some kind of thing. Hey, one of us is moving out, right? Like one of us is moving out. We think this is what's best for the family, because that is the point, right? This is what's best for the family. We are still a family. We're just recreating ourselves to maybe we will be healthier apart. And that is the thing, right? This is for the family. This is for the family while we're doing this.
Great. So what will you tell, I saw a question here, the one advice as to someone who wants to get married within the next 6 months, and they're hoping and praying that it will be their first and only marriage. What advice do you have for them?
The number one advice I have for someone who is looking to get married in the next 6 months is to have honest and candid conversations with your own friends and family who you love and who you know love you, and ask them, Do you see any red flags? Is there anything about this relationship that you see as dangerous for me? Am I my true self when I'm around this person? Wait for those answers. Because sometimes when you're so close into it, you're so deep into it, you can't see that stuff. And a lot of times the people who love you won't volunteer that information because they don't want to hurt you. But ask. That's the number one advice.
Okay. And do you see yourself getting married again?
Absolutely. I know what I'm doing now. So
okay.
yeah, I still believe in marriage. You know what I mean? Like I believe in marriage. I wasn't necessarily doing it right or even better than that.
Right.
Those marriages did what they were supposed to do.
Hmm.
And I do know that, like I said, 1 and 2 marriages is designed to stand the test of time.
Okay.
But not
So
all.
Go ahead.
No, that was it.
Okay. What's your podcast about?
Asshole parents. And so it really is insightful and introspective, kind of deep conversation about what it's like to be an adult child, kind of processing childhood trauma for all intents and purposes, and how that plays itself out into your adult life as being a married person, as going into being a parent. So it started with the impetus of my parents, because my mom thinks my dad's an asshole. My dad thinks my mom's an asshole. I live with him and I realized, no, you're really both assholes, and it made me question, well, then am I an asshole? Hence the name of the show. Like we kind of are who they are. So it's light conversation, but it was a really cool to have a conversation with my mother about what it was like for her to go through the process of divorce from my dad and then to now be in the house with him. And what was it about their divorce that let this be possible, And then the same with the conversation with my dad and the conversation with them together. And so that was kind of like my first series of interviews. Like I've only got 5 so far, but I know we're lined up. Okay. Like it's very early in the stage. But that's the idea. That is just the idea of it. How is it possible that divorce can turn out okay? Like throughout my life and every single one of my pictures, both of my parents are there.
Wow.
I could tell you when I'm 16, my graduation from high school, my graduation from college, my graduation from law school, both of my marriages, there is so important in my life where both of my parents were not there.
Wow.
There was never any tension or any stress about, oh my God, what's it going to be like? Because one of them's going to be there and they got all this drama between them. And my mother explains that the reason she's never had a problem with my father is that even though she didn't want to be married to him, he was a great father. She says he never did me wrong. There was never a time when I'm expecting my dad to do something and he didn't. He never hurt me. He always provided. If there was anything she couldn't give and I called my dad, he did. Like his child support came out of his check and he always said he liked that better. He didn't have to think about it. Like there was no reason to have any animosity towards him because he was a good father to me.
Wow. And that's awesome. So how can people reach out to you?
Hey, so the best way to reach out to me is to check me out on my website, I guess, right? divorcexn.com. So divorce Christian, right? divorcexn.com. You can follow me on all the social medias. I'm divorcexn on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. As well, you can check out and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Christian Family Esquire. And again, if you are in need of support because you're thinking about divorce and you don't have the support you need, join the private Facebook group, Thinking About Divorce.
Thank you. This is it on Legal Angle with Emmanuel Olawale. You can follow us on Facebook on Legal Angle at Emmanuel Olawale. And make sure to subscribe to the podcast and give us reviews. Also, you can follow us on Instagram, legal.angle. Subscribe to us on YouTube and also on Facebook. Thank you again for joining us. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you.